The Psalms of David, the verses in the Psalms of David that some question the meaning of. Let's remember that these were originally written in Aramaic and Hebrew, but they were translated, that version was lost after it was translated into Greek. We don't know, sometimes a lot of meanings get lost in translation. The Psalm of King David, one of the 49 books of the Old Testament, are considered an integral part of the Christian teaching and ritual in which they are scattered either in whole or in part. Let's remember that King David, the young David, was singing these psalms to the demon-possessed King Saul. And that was the only way King Saul could somehow calm down, even though twice he tried to kill David while David was singing the psalms to him. Now, the Psalms of David. This is also, the Psalms are what the Christian monastics, every night when they're awake, they don't sleep at night, they are up praying in the with the Psalms, which is basically a brief of the whole of the Holy Bible. So, the Psalms of King David, one of the 49 books of the Old Testament, their usefulness is recognized by many fathers of the early Christian church. As an example, we mention the opinion of some of them about the Psalms. St. Basil the Great, the Psalms lulls the ferocity of the soul. It is the peace of our souls. It gives us peace as a prize by calming the turmoil and waves of our thoughts, because it soothes the anger of the soul and reins in man's propensity to promiscuity. The psalm is a companion of friendship, the union of the separated, a means of reconciling the enemies. It also gives us the greatest of all goods. It gives us love. It's persecuted by the demon who invites the help of angels. It's a weapon against our nocturnal fears and a respite from the day's labors. Elder Paisius, the recently new saint of the Christian Orthodox Church, he says, "You see the Psalter, it's written with divine illumination. What deep meaning it has. Gather, if you want, all the theologians, all the philologists, and you will see that they cannot make a psalm with such depth. While David was illiterate, you can clearly see that he was led by the Spirit of God." Yes, David was a shepherd, as we know, one of the youngest of the 7 sons of Jesse. Elder Porphyrius, St. Porphyrius, says the Psalms have power, very great power, because they were written with many tears and much humility, such humility that God himself said, "I found rest only in the heart of David." Unfortunately, things are not like that. Most people who read these lines will not say, "Who do you think you are, columnist, who dares to question the words of these holy people?" And I answer them that I am just one who read the 150 Psalms of David and felt nothing spiritual while reading them. Some psalms are milder in their meaning, which is why they are used in the standard of the church, compared to others where we read extreme things. Trust me, there is nothing soul healthy about the Psalms, and that is what I will be dealing with in this series of articles. In the first part, I'll focus on those psalms in which the anger and wrath of the God of the Hebrews and his hatred for sinners is shown. So I begin. Psalm 211. Serve the Lord in fear and rejoice in him in fear. Serve the Lord in fear and rejoice with fear. Comment. We see there is a rationale that you serve the divine in fear, the fear of God that is, fearing the consequences of any disobedience to him. So we create the image of a God who wins the submission of his followers only out of the interest and not true and voluntary faith. But the point is to walk the bright path, not simply because you are afraid of the dark, but because you prefer the mentality of light and you love the light. You do it out of love. Psalm 5:6, do not dwell lawless before your eyes. You have all hated those who work iniquity. So with the translation meaning, nor is it possible for those who transgress your law, God's law that is, to stand before your eyes. Thou hast hated all those whose work it is to do iniquity. Psalm 5:7, you destroy all those who speak lies. The Lord abhors a man of blood and deceit. Meaning, will annihilate, Lord, all those who tell lies. The bloodthirsty man as well as the deceitful is abhorred by the Lord. Commentary. God, therefore, according to the inspired Psalms, hates sinners and considers liars, murderers, and the wicked to be abominations, which is why he destroys them. Can you imagine Christ, the ultimate expression of love, mercy, hating the sinners for whom he was crucified? Personally, I don't think so either. Some have the opposite view, though. Psalm 33:17. And the face of the Lord, by doing evil to him, you destroy their memorial from the earth. Meaning, on the contrary, the face of the Lord is turned against the wicked people in order to exterminate them from the earth and erase their memory. Commentary. So God is shown to be so vicious that he exterminates sinners to the point that even their memory is lost. Psalm 51:7. For this reason God has brought you to an end, cast you out, and emigrated from your tent and your root from the land of the living. Meaning, for this reason, God will precipitate you, will completely uproot you, and drive you out and exile you from your homeland, and even the roots of your descendants will disappear from among the living. Comment. Not even the descendants are spared. They are also being punished for the sins of their ancestors. Psalm 54:22. They were divided by the wrath of his face, meaning they were dismembered and torn to pieces by the wrath of the face of the Lord. Comment. It is ridiculous that some include in their prayer words like these about the dismemberment of sinful people. Psalm 67:22. But God will crush the heads of his enemies, the top of their hair of those who walk in their transgressions, meaning, but God will crush the heads of his enemies, those adorned with rich pride who wandered in their sins. And Psalm 67:23, said the Lord, I will return from Basan, I will return to the depths of the sea, meaning the Lord said, I will bring back the enemies from Mount Bashan, and I will bring them up from the depths of the sea. Psalm 67:24, as if your feathers are dyed in blood, the tongue of your dogs from enemies than him, meaning so that they may be slaughtered and their blood shed so abundantly that your feet may be dyed in it, O Israel, and your tongues of your dogs may also be dyed in the blood of your enemies. Commentary. The slick description of gore and violence continue. The psalm refers to the slaughter of the enemies of the Israelites, yet some manage to discern a spirituality within this whole scene. It is ironic about how St. Basil the Great presented the Psalms as aids to friendship and a means of reconciling enemies, since only malice, hatred, and disgust emanate from David in his work for Israel's enemies. Psalm 79:5, the Lord of hosts, how long will you be angry at the prayer of your servants? Meaning, Lord and God of hosts, how long will you be angry against this prayer of your servants? Commentary. The God of the Jews, who is presented to us as our God, turns this time against his believers, whose even their prayer causes him anger. Is it possible that the real God is angry with the only means we have to communicate with him and remember him as he has asked us? Psalm 109:5, the Lord crushed kings at your right hand in the day of his anger, meaning the Lord at your right hand will crush the kings of the earth in the day of his wrath. Psalm 109.6, he judges among the nations, fills corpses, crushes heads on the ground of many. Meaning he will judge all the nations, he will fill the world with corpses, he will crush the heads of many. Comment, something doesn't stick here. I knew that Christ said, I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world, according to John 15:47. Of course, we do not read the spiritual salvation alone in the above passage, but of death brought about by one who is more like a brutal, bloodthirsty warlord than an impassive, blameless God. Psalm 128:4, righteous Lord cut off the necks of sinners, but the righteous Lord cut off the necks of the sinners. 128:5, all the haters of Zion became weak and turned back, meaning let all those who hate the holy Zion, Jerusalem, be ashamed and turn back in shame. Comment, you know, we are very lucky that Christ is not the same person as that things having to do with hatred and bloodthirsty. The sinners reading the lines with our heads in place, However, the obsession and desire to destroy Zion's enemies is evident in the Psalms. Logical, since Samael takes care of his own spiritual children. So these are some of the psalm messages. It's not possible to list them all, where the bottomless wrath against the enemies and sinners is spoken of. I hope you have gained a first idea of the spirit. And anyone who sits down and reads this psalm can easily discern the intense sadness and grief felt by the persons praying, as well as his great fear because of the innumerable enemies who surround him and plot against him. King David even wrote a psalm concerning his son Absalom, and we know Absalom was against him for going with Uriah's wife Bathsheba, giving birth to Solomon, and Absalom ended his life by his very beautiful long locks of hair being caught in branches. I mean, at the time of David, obviously, was a time of strife and war against the Philistines. Now, it was not, so I guess he had a lot to do with that aspect as well. Now, the point is that the enemies David is referring to are not the disembodied demons and world rulers of the darkness of this age, but flesh and blood men. And before we quote the disputed points of this psalm, I want to clarify something. When in the text of the Old Testament we come across the term soul, it's not necessarily meaning the soul as we Christians perceive it, the immortal part of man. The soul is most often translated as life. And lest you think that I speak arbitrarily, I'll show you what I mean with an example through the words of Christ. We read in the Gospel according to Matthew. Matthew 10:39, he who finds his soul shall lose it. He who loses his soul owes it to me to find it. So whoever sacrifices his life for Christ will gain eternal life. On the contrary, he who will love life in this world and what is offered to him will miss the real life of the kingdom of heaven. So if we translate the term soul here as soul, then it makes no sense. That's how it's possible to lose your soul for Christ and save it at the same time. Having clarified this, let's proceed to those passages of the psalm, which, although they constitute a small part of the whole, are sufficient to understand who David considers as enemies. Psalm 3:2, Lord, to what an innumerable multitude have those who oppressed me increased. Many have also rebelled against me. Psalm 33:7, I will not be afraid of innumerable multitudes of hostile people who have surrounded me and are attacking me. Psalm 3:38, rise up, Lord, save me, you my God, for you have crushed all those who are hostile to me without reason, and you have crushed the teeth of sinners. Comment, reading verse 2 alone, one might assume that it's referred to demons who afflict the worshiper with their attacks, but the thing becomes clear in the next two verses. So he speaks of the attackers as myriads of people. Of course, there are also the naive who will claim that he's talking about the people of demons. The most skeptical will be silenced in the next verse. He writes that the enemies attack unjustly without cause. If they were demons, why would he spell it out? Are demons waiting for us to wrong them so that they have a reason to attack us? He identifies in the end the enemies with the sinners whose teeth they crush, and figuratively speaking, how much imagination does one have to claim to mean the teeth of sinful demons and not humans? Psalm 9:6, you rebuked the nations, and the wicked were destroyed. You erased their names once and for all. 9:7, the great swords of his enemy were completely destroyed. The cities fell, and his memory disappeared with a shout. Comment, again, he's talking about the enemy nations of humans, unless demons are divided into nationalities I don't know about. The names of the enemies and their memories, he says, have disappeared. Apparently they were killed to do this. Demons are neither mortal to be slain nor have cities to fall upon. Psalm 37:13, those who seek my death deal with me with violence and cruelty. Those who want my misery, they have spoken slanderous words against me and are devising deceitful plans all day long. Psalm 37:14, But I, as if I were deaf, did not hear what they said against me. As if I were dumb and mute, I did not answer them at all. Psalm 37:17, I said from within, do not allow my enemies to taste evil joy against me, nor to murmur if they see me stagger. Psalm 37:20, but my enemies live and are stronger than me, and those who hate me unjustly have multiplied. Psalm 37:21, those who return evil to me instead of the good that I have done to them condemn me because I always want the good. Commentary, the person praying here hears slander from the enemies, but showing patience pretends not to listen and does not speak against them. We could take the most extreme case and accept that David had reached such a spiritual level that he could hear the demons talking to him and teasing him, organizing devious plans, but the doubts stop with verse 20 and 21. David confesses that his enemies are still alive and even stronger than him. If he meant the mortal demons, why does he emphasize that his enemies are alive? Do demons die? Also, in verse 21, he complains that his enemies, while he treated them well, did not reciprocate, give and take mentally, and want his harm. And the reasonable question, if the enemies were demons, why did David accept good behavior from them? And how could he benefit them so as to expect a similar reaction? We conclude for sure, therefore, that the enemies are people. So in the phrase, those who seek my soul, is meant life and not soul. Psalm 53:5, for foreign people rose up against me, and strong men sought to take my life and did not consider the righteous God. Comment, the word foreigners is enough to understand that the enemies are some foreign peoples. Naturally, in a raid, the attackers do not seek to take people's souls, but their lives. Psalm 54:3, give me, Lord, attention and listen to me. The constant thought of the situation has filled me with sorrow. Psalm 54:4, from the voice of the enemy and from the grief of sinner, 54:4, I was moved by the cries of my enemies, by the oppression that their sinners exert against me, for they have hurled against me all iniquity, and they harbor a terrible hatred against me. Psalm 54:5, my heart was troubled within me, fear of death fell upon me. Comment, all this grief and sorrow due to enemies ended up becoming fear of death. The enemies are therefore people who want the life of the person praying. Nowhere is there any mention of spiritual death by demons. Psalm 62:10, those who try in vain to take my life will go down to the depths of the earth. Psalm 62:11, they will be delivered to the swordsman, the bodies will become food for the foxes. Commentary, the enemies once again are humans who, according to David, will not have good luck since they will be killed and end up in Hades, in the depths of the earth. He is quite clever, in fact, saying that the opponents will become fox rations, food for the foxes. Have you ever seen a fox eat dismembered demons? Personally, it has not happened to me. Psalm 74, O my God, save me from the hands of every sinner, from the hands of those who transgress your law and commit iniquities. Commentary, save us from sinful, unjust, and lawless people. No mention of demons. In the Sunday prayer that Christ gave us, however, we say, deliver us from the wicked, and let us also forgive our debtors. See the chaotic difference between the two. The wicked devil is recognized as the only real enemy, while sinners are the ones we must forgive because of our own sinfulness. Psalm 82:5, they said amongst themselves, come, let us destroy them, that they may cease to be a nation, and that the name of the Israelites may no longer be remembered. Psalm 82:6, they together and with one heart decided our destruction. They signed an affidavit against you. Psalm 82:7, these enemies of ours are the Edomians, the Ishmaelites, the Moabites, and the Agarites. Psalm 82:8, the tribe of Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines, and the inhabitants of Tyre. Psalm 82:9, but the Assyrians also assembled and came with them. They helped the descendants of Lot against us. Psalm 82:10, do against them what once you did against the Midianites, against the cruel general of Sisera and the king of Jabin at the river Kishon. Psalm 82:11, they were exterminated in Endor, and their bodies became dung and fertilizer for the earth. Comment, here at last we see by name the nation's tribes, which the Israelites considered their enemies. Their desire, expected of course, is to be exterminated and become fertilizer and dung for the earth. Very spiritual words, my child. For those who take these words of David as normal, think about this. How would it seem to you if we prayed to God and said to him, my God, save us from, whatever, various people that are our enemies, and the Jews who they plot and want evil. Destroy them with your wrath in the twinkling of an eye and burn them up, because you are the only merciful one and you do not let your children grieve. Turn your gaze with favor and destroy all our enemies, deliver us from death. Anyone who has read all the Psalms will find that what I have written above is an exact correspondence of David's prayers. I just adapted the words based on our data. Now, those are the remaining Psalms that refer to the enemies of the Israelites who move on the same wavelength. Finally, consider the following. If David saw demons as a threat, why didn't he tell us clearly? Did he want to speak enigmatically and vaguely so that supposedly well-read theologians and superbrains would come later and say that he needs enlightenment to read a simple text? Do we want permission from some to use our minds and not accept the ready and fanciful interpretations of some? So I stop here. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. This I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.